way is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the TWSN.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright, presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined by my co-host who's on the ones and twos today, Daniel Alameda. Got a jam-packed show, a lot of stuff to get into. But before we do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or when we upload content from the TWSN studios. Look, Daniel, it's a huge night of action, a weekend of action, I would say, from college football, obviously, NFL, NBA. But it all kicks off tonight as Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight each other on Netflix for the first time. So if you have Netflix subscription, you should be able to see the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight. And it I have mixed feelings about this, right? In my personal opinion, Mike Tyson should have hung it up a long, long time ago. If Jake Paul really has the intentions on being a boxer and, you know, fighting some of these guys, I believe he should probably fight guys that are active and actively competing. Um, but an interesting moment happened yesterday, which changed the intensity of the fight. It was a slap heard around the world. Daniel, roll the clip.
Ladies and gentlemen, the stage is set. Our main event.
So, there's something about a guy fighting for his family. There's something about a guy fighting to prove the doubters wrong, but more so to prove himself right, that he still can. Let's make no mistake about it. Jake Paul is not a boxer. Jake Paul is not a boxer. Mike Tyson, as old as he is, they say boxing is a young man's game, but I'll be honest with you, and this is coming from a guy who's boxed, who's sparred. Some of my hardest competitions have been against guys that are much older, and it's because it's about the ring IQ. Now, Mike Tyson isn't a guy that I've always fancied to have the most ring IQ, the highest ring IQ. I think that he's a guy that sort of just bolts forward and kind of just swings big punches. He kind of gasses out if it goes beyond the fifth round. But make no mistake about it, Jake Paul is an entertainer. Mike Tyson is better than an entertainer. That's my thought process on it. And that's not to diminish what Jake Paul has, I guess, accomplished by beating retired MMA fighters. The one boxer he actually did fight, he lost to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just think that Mike Tyson is one of the greatest knockout artists that we've seen. And I feel like they're sort of taking away what he does great because it is 14-ounce gloves.
Yeah.
It's 14-ounce gloves. I've boxed in 14-ounce gloves. That's like wearing pillows on your hands. So Mike Tyson, in my opinion, was never going to be a guy to outbox somebody, especially at 58 years old. But he was always live for the knockout. But I think wearing the 14-ounce gloves, that kind of takes away that. Can Jake Paul win by just jabbing Mike Tyson and running around the whole fight? Sure. One thing I will give Mike Tyson a lot of credit for is he's always been great at cutting off the ring and cutting and setting up angles in his fights. But let's not kid ourselves. Mike Tyson at 58 years old should be able to beat an entertainer. Should be able to beat a guy that hasn't fought any real boxing level competition. Just my thoughts. Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think this kind of goes to where, and these are the questions I guess I'll pose to you in a little bit, but my thought process goes to, where does Mike Tyson rank against the guys he's already fought? And that comes from Jake Paul, right? Jake Paul's fought the guys and the names that these guys are big names, but they're not great boxers, right? We talked about that. The Anderson Silva of the world, Nate Diaz, looking at these guys like a Tyron Woodley. And that's kind of where my thought process goes, right? Is it a thing of Jake Paul is in a fight now against a guy, Mike Tyson, who's the best boxer he's ever faced. I believe that he was the best boxer in the past that he's ever faced. And he may be, the best boxer out of the entire group. But the fact of the matter is, at this point, he's 58 years old. And I feel like that's where this conversation is. And the notion that I do want to talk about first is people discussing Jake Paul as, and his opponents as taking dives, right? Ben Askren taking a dive, Tyron Woodley potentially taking a dive. I think we can all be on the same page. At least this was, our thought process a little bit before the show, that Mike Tyson isn't the type of person to take a dive. And from everything that we saw in that clip, I find it very hard to believe that he was faking that slap, that he was faking the annoyance with Jake Paul. I find it hard to believe that. Look at every one of Mike Tyson's interviews throughout his career. All right. Look at his interviews leading up to this fight. Look at his interview before his fight against Roy Jones Jr. Right. They were a couple years ago. They're both old guys, but they were talking kind of respectfully, like, hey, we're just going to go in there, have fun, blah, blah, blah. This is a different feel to it. And I just am on the firm stance at this point. I've seen enough from Mike Tyson. No, I really struggle to see him walking in there and taking a dive. So I think we're going to see the most exciting fight and the most danger that Jake Paul has ever truly been in the boxing ring. Obviously, you go look at his fight against Tyson or against Tommy Fury. And that was a fight. Yes, Tommy Fury was the way better boxer, but it didn't seem like Jake Paul was really fearful. I feel like Jake Paul's going to be in there, and there's going to be moments where that dude is scared, and that's okay. It's Mike Tyson. I would be scared, but I feel like that's the pathway to victory for a Mike Tyson. If you guys want to look at the Vegas lines, this is a close fight when it comes to the Vegas lines. Jake Paul is not a minus 1,000 like he was against, Ben Askren, like he was against Nate Robinson, like he was against these other dudes. Jake Paul is minus 200. That's pretty much 2-to-1 odds, 1-to-2 odds, basically saying, hey, he's favored, but it's not by a lot. So that's just how I look at this fight, man. I really think that it's going to be an entertaining fight. But I do think that, Malik, the point that you brought up, 14-ounce gloves, that's something that's going under the radar. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it. And even myself, I didn't really know, what's the full, length that really goes to changing the outcome of a fight. So everybody betting the knockout, everybody betting, Jake Paul by knockout. I feel like that's something that's going under the radar. It's only an 8-round fight, not 10 round.
It's an 8-round fight. And I'm telling you right now, if you ever think that Jake Paul actually thinks that, he could beat a Mike Tyson at the regular size gloves, and so it shows you that there's a built-in fear.
Mm-hmm.
There's a built-in fear there with him, obviously, going against Mike Tyson. That's why, like, you might say, you might hear him say, "Oh, I'm effing him, Ariel. Mike's got to die," like he said, and all this kind of stuff like that. But everything, all the stipulations that have been put in, I can assure you, Mike Tyson didn't put those in.
Yeah,
and put those stipulations in. All those stipulations that was put in was to protect Jake Paul, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
8 rounds, right? 14-ounce gloves. That pretty much erases the knockout chance. Don't get me wrong. You could still hurt somebody, drop somebody with 14-ounce gloves. But like it really, man, it's very difficult to do that. Just to be clear, Daniel, the ones that we have in our in-home gym are 14-ounce gloves, the big ones that we hit the bag with. Those are 14-ounce gloves. Those are 14-ounce gloves are meant for punching the bag.
Mm-hmm.
To protect your hands. That's what they're there for. It's built-in extra cushion. So, a lot of people are having that go under the radar. I certainly don't think Jake Paul is knocking out a Mike Tyson with 14-ounce gloves on. I didn't think he was going to knock out Mike Tyson before that, but 14-ounce gloves, it erases the ability that Mike Tyson might devastatingly KO a Jake Paul. That's just my thought process, and it's one of those things where it's like, all right, the jig is up, right? Like the jig is up at this point. Like we know what it is at this point. Jake Paul talking about he wants to fight Canelo Alvarez next. Be real, be serious. All these built-in stipulations and all that good stuff. But one thing I will say is it does put eyes to the TV. It put asses in seats. People want to see it come together. I don't know. Just my thoughts. You got any last minute
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
no,
Daniel?
no, for sure. And I think that's where the thought process is, man. Like, you got to respect Jake Paul for what he's doing when it comes to the entertainment front, and even something like this, right? The slap. It's stuff like that, and that's just you put two guys, especially you get a guy like Mike Tyson, Malik. This is everything Jake Paul asked for. This is everything he hoped for, right? You get a guy like Mike Tyson, and for an entertainer like Jake Paul, who's about the money, who's about the likes, who's about the clicks, you put those guys in uncomfortable positions so they can react. It's almost like if anybody has a sibling, right? It's literally like you poke, you poke, you poke, you poke, and you hope to get that reaction. And when you get that reaction, it's satisfying. And I think that's exactly what Jake Paul's doing, because as soon as he got slapped, we can talk about it. It was, I'm sure, and one of our guys, Wes Hude, talked about, Jake Paul's not, a natural fighter, because a natural fighter would have swung back. I agree. I think that instinct of, we've seen many times, Daniel Cormier versus John Jones. We've seen when it's serious, when guys truly feel that fight in them, when guys are truly pissed off. If anything clicks off, they're into it. And Jake Paul was stunned and he was laughing. He's an entertainer. So I'm not doubting that Jake Paul has, wins on his record. But the point is, man, this is everything that Jake Paul asked for, right? He got the entertainment side. And man, something like this, a simple slap, it's very similar to how Jake Paul took Floyd Mayweather's hat. Got your hat. And it is all over the internet. Everybody's seeing the slap. And that's what helps to get viewers into your fight. So props to them. This is a buildup to where beforehand it was kind of like, oh, like this fight shouldn't be happening, so on and so forth. But the day before the fight, you get a slap like that. Everybody sees it. It's all over social media. Props to them, because I feel like they got a lot of eyeballs on this fight. And if I were to make a prediction, I think that it goes all 8 rounds. And I just find it hard to believe. I don't know. I think if Mike Tyson wins, I think he knocks out Jake Paul, whether it's, knocks him out due to attrition, whether Jake Paul, quits on the store, whatever it is. I don't think that Mike Tyson wins a decision. I think if it goes a decision, I think Jake Paul wins a decision. But there's a world where Mike Tyson could knock him out. So,
yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Let's keep the conversation rolling. But before we do, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or when we upload content. Look, Deion Sanders has been on record, and he says pretty much if the wrong team were to say they were going to draft Shedeur Sanders, he would then step in. Daniel, roll the clip.
Some of that if it's the wrong organization to say he ain't going there.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do it publicly. I'll do it privately.
Yeah. Okay.
So you said you're going to be dad. You're going to be dad. You're going to be dad.
I'm going to be dad. The cows come home. Yes, sir. And with Travis as well.
Oh, yeah. I keep forgetting that's your, I keep forgetting that's your other son.
That's your other son.
Yeah. But give us a little bit more insight on where you would like to. You don't even have to name teams. You can just give me region, style, whatever that Shedeur needs or you want to see him go and play for. You don't have to give me teams. Just give me regions.
I'm not going to give you region. I give you understanding.
Give me understanding.
Somebody that can handle the quarterback that he is. Somebody that can handle understanding that what he's capable of. Someone that has had success in the past handling quarterbacks, or someone in an organization understands what they're doing.
So, I mean, what do you make of that, Daniel? I have a lot of thoughts on it. Listen, it's the NFL, man. That's why if a team is bad, they have the hopes of drafting a Shedeur Sanders or a quarterback that can help right the ship. I hate this notion that, these guys got to control where they land. And I get it. There's some organizations you just don't want guys to end up in. Maybe if it's like a Cleveland, right, who just haven't had success at the quarterback position. Or if it's a dysfunctional organization, maybe like the Panthers, something like that. Maybe you go out of your way and you say, hey, I don't want my quarterback son to land there. I could understand that. But to me, I feel like this is a little overstepping. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, well, it's 50-50, man. I think it 1000%, let's not deny it is overstepping. That is what it is. It's something where you rarely see this. And that's where the conversation of, I agree with you. This is football. You should go wherever you land. The point I will say that I respect Dion for, it is 1000%. It is overstepping, but it's very similar. Let's talk about it, right? The whole LeBron James Bronny conversation, right? Nepotism. I believe it's a real thing. And that's what I think that with this situation, it sounded very much, and we've talked about this on the show before, it sounded very much like Deion Sanders there said, hey, I'm not going to give you a team, but here's the understanding. The understanding is my son, Shador, and Travis are going to go to teams that know what to do, especially Shador. They know what to do with the quarterback, not necessarily the head coach, but he said somebody in that organization knows what to do with a quarterback. And that screams a lot like the Las Vegas Raiders, Malik. It does. He's got that relationship with Tom Brady and everything he said there. He didn't give a team, but he said, I want somebody in an organization that has an understanding of what to do with the quarterback. So that means somebody who's won a Super Bowl. That means somebody who's a head coach that's done it before, that's developed elite talent, or that means somebody in an organization that is a superstar. And that sounds a lot like Tom Brady with the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think when you look at these other teams, Malik, the Cleveland Browns, like you said, they're top 5 potential selection right now. There is no shot in hell Deion's going to want his son to go there, right? You look at some of these other teams. It could be the Giants. It could be the Cowboys. But all around, I think that Deion Sanders is going to make sure that whatever happens, his son goes to where he wants him to go.
I just want to be clear about something. For me, it's not a race thing. So can we stop with this Manning, Elway, Sanders thing? I don't care who it is. First of all, I was way too young when Arch Manning did that. I'm not a fan of it regardless. It's meddling.
Yeah.
Like if a team is poor, and a team isn't doing well, I believe that whether we like it or not, that's the process, right? If you're a bad team, you have the chance to draft a star player in college that could literally change the face of your organization or help your organization come from the slums.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with race. I don't care if it's Archie Manning, John Elway. If I had a show back then, I would be saying the same exact thing. I don't care who you are. I just think that it's interrupting the process. And people are saying, well, Deion wants what's best for his son. Doesn't every parent?
Yeah.
The only difference is he's a Hall of Fame cornerback, and he probably has a lot of pull within the league. He knows a lot of people. I take issue with people meddling regardless of who it is. If Jimmy Burrow stepped in for Joe Burrow, I would say something. If Tua Tagovailoa's parents stepped in, I would say something regarding that. It's not. It's just. I had a problem when Kyler Murray's dad was answering all his questions for him.
Yeah,
and wasn't allowing him to lead. It's a poor look, no matter which way we slice it. It's a poor look. Like, at the end of the day, I think that you should let the process play out. Then you can probably have conversations and talk about, once he gets drafted somewhere, maybe getting someone in to work with your son.
Yeah.
Right. To help him throughout the process. Or maybe you can set up a meeting, maybe he's going to represent us. I have no idea. Maybe you try to get more involved with said organization so you can have more control of how your son's career goes. That's a different way I want you to take, but to actively step in and either prevent a team from drafting your son when they have the right to do so. And let's be clear, they have the right to do so regardless.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting look for a guy that hasn't even played it down in the NFL yet, Deion. Right? He got to play amongst pros regardless. You had your career, you had to earn your chops. You had to show what you were capable of. Your son's got to do the exact same thing. And Sean Brennan says, you could also ruin that star player. Young Wilson, Darnold, even Lawrence. If you can get your kid in a better spot, you do it. Well, this isn't Pee Wee. This isn't high school. This is the pros. Guess what? There's been a ton of players who are talented that don't pan out. And the ones that are truly strong mentally, because guess what? His dad can't play for him. He's got to play. His dad's got to play. His dad can't play for him. His dad can make all the moves on the outside, but at the end of the day, it's going to be Shador stepping on that field. It's going to be Shador proving that he could be a franchise quarterback. That's the God's honest truth. Nowhere is that okay. If a team is bad and they have the opportunity to draft Shedeur Sanders, is they're well within their right to draft Shedeur Sanders. If Shedeur Sanders can't cut it in the NFL because his daddy didn't step in and get him in a more favorable spot, in a more favorable situation, what does that tell you about your said franchise quarterback? Because at the end of the day, when you get to the NFL, you ain't playing for the name on your back. You're playing for the team that drafted you. Then comes the name on your back. Whatever organization that is. And Sean, I understand. Trust me, I know the league better than most. Says Manny Elway, this is not new and it worked for those guys, sure, but he's not them. And they're not him. This is a different situation. It's 2024. And so my thought process is, whoever drafts Shedeur Sanders, understand the baggage you're coming with. You are coming with Deion. You are coming with the Sanders name. But my God, we're in 2024. We're talking about making it so where we control where a quarterback lands. What are we talking about here? I don't give a damn about favoritism and all that kind of stuff like that. Whoever drafts him, draft him, but do your homework. Know what you're getting yourself into. Deion, if you want to be involved after they draft him, I'm fine with that. Anything else you want to add to that, Daniel?
Yeah, I think that you're right. The issue with this now is these teams, and if I'm an organization, it really is, if I'm not aligned with Deion Sanders, I ain't taking Shedeur. And I think that that's just the situation right now, right? For as much as, like, we can talk about it, I'm with you, right? We can talk about it being wrong. If I'm, let's say, the New York Giants, and I'm looking for a franchise quarterback, and Deion doesn't want Shedeur to come here, as much as I like Shedeur, and I do like Shedeur a lot. We'll get into discussions later. I think Shedeur is a very solid quarterback. I think he's not a hyper athletic quarterback, but I think his intelligence is there. I think he's come out in the fourth quarter. I think his poise is there. I really do think he's confident, and I like the certain traits that he has. But at this point, if I'm not, as an organization, aligned with Deion Sanders, I'm taking Shedeur Sanders off my board. And I feel like that's the issue right now with what Deion is doing. He is taking, Shedeur off a lot of teams' boards. And I'm sure Deion Sanders is okay with that. But let me just say this, and that's why I think that Deion knows exactly where he wants his son to go. And I feel like he knows.
That's the Raiders. Like,
it's got him.
Not kidding nobody. That's the Raiders. It's where you want him to go.
Yeah.
You have ties there, right? And that all makes sense. The simple fact of the matter is, I understand what influence is. I understand how this whole process works. I hate it when I go to the combine every year. You see nepotism played out at points in this league quite often, or barking up the wrong tree, trying to explain that to the wrong guy. The simple fact, what I'm trying to say is, the point what I'm trying to make. And Thirsty Dude, he said,
that was about
Malik,
it. Yeah.
He said, what's that?
No, I was making the point that
he said, Malik, who said it was about race? I just named people who did it. I wasn't talking about you, Thirsty Dude. I was talking about several other people who brought up Elway, who brought up Manning, and there's definitely an angle being made there. It's not just with people in the chat right now. It's people in the industry. People are saying, well, why is it a problem when Deion Sanders did it, but it wasn't a problem when Archie Manning did it? I'm just not trying to create that division. At the end of the day, it's wrong regardless who it is. Let the process play out. If a team is poor, they should have the ability to draft a quarterback. Because I'll tell you right now, if I'm a part of that organization and you got your dad speaking out and saying all this kind of stuff like that, I got to question your mental toughness. I got to question, is this the guy that's going to be able to have the mental capabilities to lead our organization? Because clearly, if I draft you and we're in a poor spot, we're going to go through some rough patches.
Yeah.
There's going to be some tough times. Are you going to be able to take us out of that? Or are you mentally not there? Are you only interested in serving your own brand? And that speaks to a whole bigger issue. He's a grown-ass man. And I think that's the God's honest truth. Wes Hude says, I got to deal with a grown man's dad about his career at this logical standpoint. Ain't happening. Right. That's what it's about him. It's about him being the franchise quarterback, and can he lead effectively? I've never seen so many people make so many excuses as to why Deion is stepping in. At the end of the day, we'll see it all play out. That's just my thought process. If you guys could do us a huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or when we upload content from TWSN Studios. Daniel, the Bills take on the Chiefs this week, and we got to ask the question: will the Bills finally overcome the Chiefs? Taking place in Buffalo, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I got to get your thoughts on that. Will the Bills finally be able to overcome the Kansas City Chiefs? Because this feels like the one spot that if the Kansas City Chiefs aren't able to break through past them, well, you know, they might. I'm sorry, if the Bills aren't able to break past the Kansas City Chiefs, will the Chiefs go undefeated?
Mhm.
Do we see another loss on the Chiefs' schedule the rest of the way? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that it's possible that the Bills beat the Chiefs, and the Bills have actually played the Chiefs well in the regular season. The Bills and Josh Allen are 3-1 in the regular season against the Kansas City Chiefs. All three of those wins came at Arrowhead. So obviously this game is in Buffalo. If I were to make a prediction, I still think that the Chiefs win. I like what I've seen from the Bills. They're obviously 8-2. But man, I just think that when a team has a team's number, they've got a team's number. But like I said, when you look at this matchup, the Chiefs haven't been super dominant, right? They've been good, which is why there is no world, in my opinion, where the Chiefs come out here and dominate the Bills. The Bills have been on fire. The Bills have been on a roll. And I just trust what Josh Allen has put forth so far this year. But his last couple of games haven't been crazy. So if I were to make this statement, and if you're the Bills, respectfully, you need this game. You need this game more than the Chiefs need this game. If the Chiefs lose this game, whatever. The Chiefs are going to take it as a positive, whichever way you go about it. If the Chiefs win this game, they're going to try to go 17-0 and be historic and go for that three-peat. If the Chiefs lose this game, they're going to take it as, damn, all right, we got that first loss out of the way. We can just play ball the rest of the season, focus on the playoffs. If I'm the Buffalo Bills, though, and if you lose this game, you are not going to be confident heading into Arrowhead in the playoffs if you have to play them. And I think that's the clear-cut philosophy on this game. The Bills have so much to lose in this game. This game is about pride. This game is about confidence. And the Buffalo Bills have gotten their confidence shot time and time and time again in the playoffs, right? That's where it matters. Like I said, the Bills and the Chiefs have had multiple games in the regular season where they look good and they beat the Chiefs and they look like they're the team to beat, but then come playoff time, they lose to the Chiefs. So if I'm the Buffalo Bills, I think this is a clear cut and dry. You have to win this game for confidence sake, because if you win this game, you put yourself one game behind them in, the regular season. Maybe you can somehow go on a crazy run and get that one seed if the Chiefs lose another game. But like I said, I think that this Buffalo Bills team as a whole, they do have a lot of holes. Amari Cooper's been hurt. He's been out of it. So they've really been relying on just Khalil Shakir, James Cook. Their offense is fine. I'm not a huge, believer in this Buffalo Bills offense, but neither am I of the Kansas City Chiefs offense. Kansas City Chiefs offense is solid. They're good. They just haven't played elite, but they do get Isaiah Pacheco back this week. So that could help them. So we'll see, Malik. We'll see. But like I said, I think that the Buffalo Bills, they need this game. They need this win.
I just struggle
Yeah.
to see them actually be able to pull it through, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
I agree with you. I think that the Chiefs just have this mental sort of advantage over them, but maybe it's different this year. I just don't see it though. The Bills have just, obviously they've had a lot of receivers out and stuff like that, and they've just sort of been trying to find a way to win. And I think that speaks more to Joe Brady as an offensive
Yes.
play caller and the success they've still been able to have, even with all the different names in the receiver position. But I still believe that the Bills will win this thing. I'm starting to see Mahomes get his timing down with DeAndre Hopkins as well.
Yep.
Travis Kelce is proving that he still has something left in the tank.
Mhm.
I think this Chiefs team is starting to put it all together. Xavier Worthy's back in the fold, right? And sooner or later, they may or may not. I'm not sure how the injury is going to play out. Get Isaiah Pacheco. I know
Yeah.
that's a difficult injury to sort of come back from. I'm wondering if he will even look the same, when he does return,
Mhm.
if it is this season. But I gotta side with the Chiefs here. I think the Chiefs win that game, but I do think it's going to be props galore. I think you can get a lot of points in this game. I definitely think that the Bills will have some success. It's just trying to find out who's going to step up for the Buffalo Bills to keep this game close for them.
Mhm.
Right? I think that's the biggest thing. Let's move on to another topic. But before we do, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. Let's ask the question, right? The Jaguars have a game this week. And if the Jaguars lose this game this week, let's ask ourselves, would this be enough to move on from Doug Peterson? I got to believe, here's my thought process. They don't move off of Doug Peterson after a loss this week. I got to think that maybe they'll probably at least allow him to remain the coach the remainder of the season. I don't know if there will be any benefit to just firing him a couple weeks down the road. They lose this week. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
Yeah, and I think this is the tough part because Malik, Trevor Lawrence isn't starting. It's Mac Jones. And that's where I feel like he could get scapegoated, man. Or he could get not scapegoated, but he could get saved. And I think that at some point, though, you look at a guy like Press Taylor, and this is where the conversation has to be, but we've talked about this. Doug Peterson and Press Taylor are like this. They are tight, and you just hope that at some point you got to realize, damn, my team, we're 2-8? Regardless, Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, you're playing the Detroit Lions. And in my opinion, right now, they're 10-point favorites. This game won't be close. And I'm with you, Malik. I just think that at some point, I just don't know how Doug Peterson can survive this season, man.
They have a tough stretch of games right here.
Yes,
they got
it's
the Lions
brutal.
and they got the Texans back to back. That's tough, man.
Yes.
That's tough.
And that's the part, Malik, where it's like, I just struggle to see what is going to change. Are you just going to roll it over to next year and run it right back? I can't see that. We talked about other teams. We talked about Zach Taylor, what it takes. We talked about these other head coaches, what it takes to get fired. 2-8, having projected the #1 overall pick, what is that going to do for you? So I'm with you. Maybe, and some people, the Ohio said, probably get to finish out the season, then be released in the offseason. Regardless, you got to, maybe that is the right move. But man, Doug Peterson can't be the head coach next year.
It's been downhill. It's been downhill, for a little bit there in Jacksonville. And I thought they were going to take the next step this year. I really believed in my heart that they would, and it just really just all unraveled, man. It really all unraveled. And there's definitely some games they can win still here on their schedule, like the Titans game. Shoot, I don't even know what the Jets are. They got the Raiders still. They got the Titans twice actually, and then they have the Colts. There's some winnable games on the schedule. It's just, can they put it all together? Will they put it all together? Those are the questions that we are asking ourselves, man. And I have no idea. But I think that this week will be an interesting telltale on the future of a guy like Doug Peterson. Coaching the Jaguars for the long haul here. Let's move on over to the Bengals. We know that the Bengals have a huge game against the Chargers taking place this week, and we've talked about everything under the sun, so to speak. We've highlighted a lot, right? Especially on State of the Jungle, which you guys catch the episode if you missed it on Wednesday. Me and the crew broke down a lot, the intricacies of the organization, how things work. But one thing I want to touch on is who on the defense is going to step up? Will the Bengals defense step up? Right? Will they step up? That's going to be the thing, because if this defense can perform even average at an average level, man, I think that this could I think that they could find themselves going on a little bit of a hot streak here. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
I'm with you. And I don't think that this is the hard part about this conversation, Malik. And maybe this is just me reading too much into how they've looked at certain points. But like even this game, I don't really think this is I'm not concerned about how the defense looks in this game. I'm not. And that's the part where I look at what they did in that Ravens game. I've looked at how they've controlled some of these other offenses, albeit they're not great offenses. But I just look at how the Chargers have played, because that's the conversation, right? It's the Chargers versus the Bengals. The Chargers are, everybody's underrating the Chargers. The Chargers are so good. The Chargers are damn good. Jim Harbaugh's culture has been great. Am I concerned about the Chargers putting up 30 points? I'm not, Malik. I'm not. I think the Chargers have figured it out in the red zone recently, right? Justin Herbert rushed for either 1 or 2 touchdowns last week. That was kind of their key to unlocking, the red zone offense. But we've seen the Cincinnati Bengals go look at last game, shut down Derrick Henry. Look at the game before, shut down Derrick Henry again. Their rushing defense has looked solid at times. And when I look at a team like the Chargers, you go look at them the past couple of weeks. J.K. Dobbins is in. Our guy Michael Hara talked about this a little bit on yesterday's show. J.K. Dobbins isn't a workhorse running back right now. They kind of split the carries between him and Gus Edwards. And I'm at a point now where I really think it's going to, you're going to have to let Justin Herbert beat you. And I'm not too concerned about these dudes. Man. I think that the Bengals defense could look good against the Chargers offense. I think the Chargers offense is going to, and brings up a great point. It's It's just you got to be fundamentally sound. I feel like if you're fundamentally sound in this game, if the tackling is on the point, on right point, I'm confident this Bengals defense, because you look at the rushing defense, Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, they're always in the run fit. The way they struggle is up against hyper athletic dudes. And I don't see that with the Chargers. I think the Chargers are super consistent. I think their offense pushes forward. Will Dissly, Ladd McConkey, they're consistent. I think that this is going to be a 20 to 23 point game. And I think it really comes down to the Bengals offense, to be honest, because like I said, I'm confident in the Bengals. Trey Hendrickson, he's got a tough test, against the Chargers offensive line, but like we've seen Justin Herbert make some mistakes. So I don't know. I think the Bengals defense steps up in this game. And when you look at the rest of the season, it's not like you got to go up against these crazy quarterbacks. The toughest quarterbacks you already faced. You face Lamar Jackson. You face Patrick Mahomes. You face Jaden Daniels at his peak. Jalen Hurts with those weapons. The rest of this team, the teams on the schedule, you aren't facing an elite wide receiver besides CeeDee Lamb, and that's it. So I think this Bengals defense could be in for a very, very, very solid run the next couple weeks. But these are going to be gritty games, and that's why I feel like this isn't really going to be up to the defense to be sexy. They just got to hold their own, and that's my thoughts.
What Wes Uday says it's not the players, it's the coach's scheme that's worrisome. No, it's the players. It's about execution. Bengals defense was able to hold the Ravens offense in the beginning, and then all of a sudden poor tackling, poor execution happened. Some of the same plays are being called when we did a deep dive on it. It really is an execution standpoint and staying consistent in coverage, staying consistent with tackling, staying consistent with your run lanes and setting the edge. It really is an execution standpoint. You gotta want to. You've got to want to. And part of that comes from morale being low. Maybe that comes from seeing the comeback being in place, but it was not that. Here's what I'll say. I think you kind of I am worried about the Bengals defense this game. Not worried like I don't think that they could have success against the Chargers. I just am not so dismissive against I'm not personally so dismissive against the Chargers offense.
No, yeah.
I've seen the Bengals make offenses that had no business looking good against them, like the Panthers were able to have a lot of success against the Bengals.
Yeah.
Right. Raiders had some success at points against the Bengals. Like for me, you got to look at it and you got to say, okay, the Chargers can find a way to make some things work for them in this game against the Bengals. I'm not as dismissive about that. I think that this Bengals defense needs to step up. I think that they need to play with a sense of pride and a sense of urgency. I think you need to see, even if the Chargers offense hasn't had a lot of success, what I found often with the Bengals is sometimes you can be somebody's get right game. You could be somebody's game for the light to cut on, so to speak. Now, you don't go against Keenan Allen and the Mike Williams of the worlds anymore, obviously, with the Chargers or the Austin Ecklers, but they still do some things good.
Yeah.
They still are disciplined. They still are a very tough coach team. And it's crazy. I said in the beginning of the season, told a lot of people, I said, hey, I think me and you were talking about this, Daniel. I said, I think that Harbaugh is going to have these guys playing at a very high competitive level. And I think sooner or later, they're coming for that division crown.
Yeah.
I believe that. I said this year might be too soon, but I believe that they're at some point they're coming for that divisional crown. And I have a big respect for Harbaugh. I think he's one of the better football coaches in this era, and I think he doesn't always get his flowers that he deserves. But man, the guy's a winner. The guy is what Justin Herbert needed. To be honest with you, and you got to be worried a little bit about the pass rushers that the Chargers have. Obviously, they still have a very good safety back there in Derwin James. They do a lot of good things.
Yeah,
right. They do a lot of good things, and they're going to try to apply pressure on this Bengals offensive line. It's going to be it's going to be interesting to see it all come together, man. I think that at the end of the day, the Bengals are playing for everything here on Sunday. And Bengals fandom said, "Why do you think morale is low?" I think losing. I don't think it. I think winning cures everything. If the Bengals are on a winning streak, people forget. Maybe not the national media, maybe not opposing fans, but people will forget how you started. And I think that everything is in front of them. We've seen them go on runs before. I'm very curious. I'm more curious to see how this team looks coming out of the bye week, personally.
Yeah, but that's where it depends on how this game goes. Like, because we both understand, like, this is And that's why this game concerns me, man. Like, I'm not confident. And that's the part for me. Like, I believe the Bengals will win this game,
Well, what
but
are you not confident in?
I'm just not confident in the fact that I've seen this Bengals team lose pretty much every close game this year.
Can I tell you what I'm confident in?
Yeah.
I think that the Bengals offense is going to still run the way they've been running.
Yeah.
It looks like Orlando Brown, it looks like T. Higgins are both on track to play.
Mhm.
So that means for the first time, we might get T. Higgins, Jermaine Burton, Jamar Chase all playing, as well as Mike Gesicki playing at the level he's playing at.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm excited to see how that sort of comes together. I still think the Bengals are going to have to fight in the run game, obviously, to turn some yards out.
Yeah.
I'm curious, will Khalil Herbert get more opportunities, right? Will Khalil Herbert get more opportunities to prove what he can do? Yeah, I don't know, Daniel. But I'm still confident that this offense can do a lot of positive stuff, and I think that they can still put a lot of points on the board. Personally, I do. I
Yes.
really believe that in my heart.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's where when I look at this team, like I said, I'm confident in this offense and I'm confident in the way they look at times. I think the part that is just tough is like this game is everything. And this is why I think this game is so pivotal, because if you can go out and beat this team, this team ain't a slouch. You go out and beat this team ahead into the bye week, you're giving your team serious confidence. And like I said, I feel like that's the part that's just keeping me away from being ultra confident, saying, hey, I'm super confident the Bengals, dominate the Chargers, beat LA. Is just the close games and just how well this Chargers team is coached. But I think Vegas has this line right. This is a 1-point game and the Chargers are at home. So in theory, the Bengals are favored by 2 points. I think that this line is somewhat right. I think the Chargers and Bengals, this game is really a coin flip. And it's a coin flip, not from the talent perspective. On offense, the Bengals are far much more talented than the Los Angeles Chargers. And that's what's going to hold the Chargers back the rest of the year, right? Heading into the playoffs, I believe, is the lack of talent on offense. This team is so well coached, and they are just a gritty football team. They win close games. So I think that that's what this game's going to come down to. I really think that this is your chance to make a statement, because Zach, if you can go out there and beat Jim Harbaugh, this makes a statement for you as well. Hey, maybe you didn't outcoach Jim Harbaugh, but you beat him. And that's kind of how I look at this game. And this is your chance, Bengals, to get right back in the playoff mix and to potentially, make a push deep into the playoffs. But it all starts this week. And I feel like this is the week that, damn, hey, you win this, you're in it. If you lose this, I'm going to be looking to say, hey, man, you're going to need a damn miracle. But
So, you made an interesting statement, Sean. You said the Chargers play for everything, and nobody's discounting what the Chargers are playing for. With us being in space Cincinnati, we're just talking about what the Bengals have to play for. We realize what the Chargers have to play for. They're 6-3. They're 6-3. They still have everything in front of them as well. And to 619 Bengals fan, you said, "What the hell are you talking about? I'm thinking about Malik. Got to think about this week first." Of course, you think about this week first, but I've been talking about this game this entire week. What I've always said is, under Zach Taylor, this team has looked noticeably different. And statistically speaking, they've looked different after the bye week. They tend to find themselves. They tend to, while most coaches usually like adapt and change from week to week or after a couple of weeks, the Bengals typically figure it out after the bye week. I remember when they went on their run and they figured out how to go under, they were using the I formation, going under center more, and they were running the ball effectively. They do some critical deep dives on who they are as a team during the bye week, and which causes them to come out after the bye week having a lot of success. That's the only thing I'm looking for. I've been talking about this game this entire week, so forgive me if I was saying, I'm excited to see how they look after the bye week, because I truly am excited about that. But Sean Brennan said Chargers haven't given up more than 20 all year. The defense is legit. One could argue that they have never faced. They have not even argue. They have not faced an offense that's better than the Bengals this season.
Yeah,
they haven't. Let's talk about the teams that they have beaten, right? Let's talk about the offenses that they faced so far this season and who they've held. I think we're playing with fool's gold. We're talking about who they have played so far. Before we could say this defense is so legit, they haven't allowed anybody to score 20 on them or more than 20 on them. Let's talk about it, right? They face the Raiders, right? They face the Panthers. They face the Steelers, who scored 20 and beat them. They face the Chiefs, who scored 17 and beat them. They faced the Broncos, who scored 16. They faced the Cardinals, who beat them by only scoring 17. They faced the Saints. They faced the Browns. They faced the Titans. Tell me in there where they faced a good offense.
Cardinals offense was good, but they also weren't at their full potential.
They weren't. They have not faced they have not faced an elite offense this season at all. For us to make this statement, like the statement is if they've been facing these top tier offenses and shutting them down, I think is just factually incorrect. The Chiefs when they faced the Chiefs weren't at full strength.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes wasn't playing great. He's still starting to find his bearings and he's starting to play even better. But let's be real with ourselves. They haven't faced any top offenses yet. Now the next 2 weeks they face the Bengals and they face the Ravens. Then in a couple of weeks they face the Falcons, right? Then they face the Chiefs. They face the Buccaneers, who has a leading quarterback who's tied for most touchdowns in the league with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield with 24 touchdown passes. Like, they have not faced any top offenses yet. We'll be able to answer that question in the next couple of weeks if this Chargers defense is truly elite. But I think the numbers can look a little bit different. So, let's talk real here. Like you jump on here and you always want to discredit the Bengals, and you're a friend of the show, my man. And I don't mind having an honest conversation with you. But I think that there's something to be said. And that's not me saying that the Bengals are any better. The Bengals have had success against lesser than teams. That's the thing about putting it all together. But what I will say is the defenses the Bengals have played, right? The offense has showed up. The offense has showed up in a big way. And so while I hear where you're coming from, you gotta find a way to churn out some victories here for the Bengals, man. The Bengals gotta find a way to churn out some victories. Dan, anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Like, we discussed this a lot on State of the Jungle, but this is a massive win for this game or this team. This is a massive game for this team. And this is really a season defining game at this point. We talked about the Ravens beforehand, kind of as a season defining game if you win, but this game really defies how the rest of your season goes. If you lose, this is spooky season. If you win, you get a bye week and you potentially could look towards the playoffs. So this week is everything. Yeah.
And I think, forgive me though, I feel like, when I look at a team like the Ravens, I've always held the Ravens in high regard, right? For their defense and how they've been in the past. And, AFC North football is just the toughest football in the NFL, in my opinion. And, regardless, even if they don't perform well against like teams outside of the division, which the Ravens actually have, those teams are always going to show up to play. Those defenses are always going to show up to play. It's the same thing how I have what I say about the Steelers. The Steelers have not played any divisional games yet. This is their first divisional game this week. So it's a lot to be told. I think you can tell a lot about a team by the teams they face in their division and how they're able to win those, because that's how you build your team. You build your team to sort of win the division. Everything else follows thereafter. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, see it all shapes out. Do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live, when we upload content from the TWSN studios. Let's talk about John Jones, Daniel. The question is this going to be John Jones's last fight? Right? Dana White came out with some encouraging information during the press conference. He said, if John Jones wants to fight again, he will fight he will fight Tom Aspinall if he beats Stipe Miocic. And he even went even further where he says he believes that the competitive fire, the competitive spirit of John Jones will not allow him to walk away from the game with questions unresolved when it comes to Tom Aspinall. Because here's one thing I know for a fact. John Jones is publicly negotiating with the UFC right now. He's publicly negotiating with the UFC right now. He is saying, hey, give me what I want or you lose me forever. Well, the UFC is saying, okay, well, fine, we're losing you forever. We know John Jones has a competitive fire. He loves being the center of attention. He loves people talking his name. He wants the Alex Pereira fight. He also wants to shut Tom Aspinall up for good. Could you imagine John Jones walking away with questions unresolved of if you could have beaten Tom Aspinall? It's not a thing of, well, I'm out of my prime. It's not a thing of I'm out of my prime and, this guy is so much younger than me and all this kind of stuff like that. No, it's a thing of, you could ask yourself the question. You could ask yourself the question, what would happen if John Jones and Tom Aspinall fought? All right. You can ask yourself that question. What would happen if Tom Aspinall and John Jones fought? Now, typically speaking, when you have a guy that's revered as the GOAT and there's a young up and coming player, right? I'm sorry, up and coming fighter. Typically, if that guy is like about to retire, we always ask ourselves what could have been. It's like the Canelo versus Floyd Mayweather thing. Well, they fought already. Floyd was very smart, very strategic by fighting Canelo Alvarez when he was young. We can never ask that question, what would happen, because Floyd was out of his prime, in his prime, and Canelo was undefeated in his prime. And his first loss came to Floyd Mayweather. We can never ask ourselves what would happen when Canelo, if Canelo and Floyd fought, because we saw it already. John Jones is still actively competing.
Yep.
So, and let's not act like he's just some wily vet when it comes to Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall is 6 years younger than John Jones.
Yeah.
This is a fight that makes sense for a lot of reasons. I can't see John Jones walking away without leaving that one unresolved either. And I think that the fans will always win. The fans will always get what they want. And I think that what the fans want is John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. And John Jones is the GOAT. He can do whatever he wants. John Jones is the GOAT at light heavyweight. This ain't light heavyweight. This is heavyweight. UFC's already doing him a solid by allowing him to fight Stipe Miocic, who hasn't fought in 2 years and hasn't won in 3 years. So yeah, no, he can't do whatever he wants. And I'm glad that Dana White made that very, very clear. John, if you want to fight again, you got to fight Tom Aspinall.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Dana, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, like, I see two sides of this. I agree with you about John Jones being competitive, and I agree with you about John Jones not, and the fans getting what they want. My only concern is if John Jones doesn't want to fight, if he's scared of Tom Aspinall.
He wants to fight.
You think, but do you think he's confident that he beats a Tom Aspinall?
No, he wasn't confident that he beat Francis Ngannou too, which is why he asked for a boatload of money. Here's the thing. The UFC will give John Jones a boatload of money to make this fight happen. The UFC will give John Jones what he wants. And I promise you, if they fought, John Jones is leaving with a loss.
Yeah.
An actual loss, not a loss that comes from a disqualification. And I think John Jones realizes that, which is why John Jones is publicly negotiating with the UFC. Now, ask yourself this question. Will John Jones actually relinquish the heavyweight belt after this? I can answer that question for you. It's no, he won't. That's He says a lot. He said a lot throughout this buildup.
Yeah.
Joe, Tom disrespected me. Okay, well, DC disrespected you. DC spit on you. And you still fought him. You and DC have traded barbs, and you talked about how you hated each other. Israel Adesanya spoke so badly about you and your character, and you were seen in a photo just last year smiling with him. It's not about a disrespect thing. It's a thing of John Jones understands the risk involved if he fights a Tom Aspinall, just like John Jones understood the risk involved if he fought a Francis Ngannou. And he's trying to find a way out. And I'm sorry to say that about a GOAT, right? Somebody who we respect so much in this sport. But the optics are true. He walked away from an interview because he didn't want to be asked questions about Tom Aspinall. Yeah. Everywhere he has turned this week, this has been fight week hell for John Jones. He's been asked about Tom Aspinall. He's been asked more about Tom Aspinall than he has about Stipe Miocic. Yeah. The UFC comment section is flooded with ducks. John knows the fight that people want. The thing is, John, if you want this heavyweight reign to be taken serious, if you want people to call you unequivocally the GOAT, especially of heavyweight, it doesn't matter what you do against Stipe Miocic. You have to fight Tom Aspinall. And guess what? I'm willing to bet John Jones gets on a mic after he beats Stipe Miocic, because he's going to beat Stipe Miocic, and he'll accept to fight Tom Aspinall.
Really?
I believe that. Because the UFC is smart. The UFC will allow Tom Aspinall to come into the octagon. They will. The UFC will set the stage. They will allow for Tom Aspinall to come into the octagon, and the pressure's on for John. John's going to do one of the two things there. Going to do what Tom asked. Well, if you don't want to fight me, mate, hand me over the heavyweight belt right then and there. Or accept the fight with me. It's easy to do when you're ducking and dodging the guy all week. But what happens when you both are in the octagon? The crowd is roaring for it. You don't get the shiny fight of Alex Pereira. John's going to have no choice but to accept. Make no mistake about it.
I don't know. And this, like, I'm with you. He should. Malik, my only issue is I've seen, and this sounds crazy, right? Because John Jones is the GOAT. The quote unquote GOAT.
He is.
But I've seen, and we've seen him duck. Am I crazy for thinking that there is a world where he beats Stipe and he literally walks off into his sunset? That's what I and maybe this is me being crazy. Maybe I could see a world where he does give away that belt to Tom in there and put up a peace sign and say, I'm out.
He will never do that.
Really? You don't think so?
No. John Jones is the most he is the most self-centered fighter I've seen.
Mhm.
He will never give Tom that spotlight and give him the belt in there. Excuse my French. That would be basically Tom Aspinall bitching you.
Yeah.
He would never give Tom the belt there.
Yeah.
Especially when everybody's clamoring for it.
Mhm.
He was down to fight Francis Ngannou if the UFC met his number. Here's the thing. Never has the UFC been in a spot where an interim champion is sitting there. And now the interim champion told the UFC his next fight will be for the belt, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall said, my next fight will be for the undisputed belt, regardless.
Yep.
Whether I'm champion or I'm fighting John Jones. John Jones has walked away from the retirement talk.
Yeah.
He has. He's walked away from the retirement talk. He's talked about fighting Jamal Hill, Derek Lewis, everybody under. What sense does that make to y'all?
Yeah.
Listen, this tells me everything that I need to know. John Jones and Dana White probably had a conversation behind the scenes, or Dana White doesn't make that statement.
Mm-hmm.
John Jones will fight Tom Aspinall. And the problem with it is there's a big London card coming up soon. John Jones got to understand that he slowly but surely made himself the B-side in the situation.
Yep.
Now all the fan favor is on a Tom Aspinall. The UFC changed gloves because of John Jones. The UFC moved an event because of John Jones. The UFC has done so much to help and cater to John Jones's reign. John Jones will fight Tom Aspinall.
Wow.
That's my prediction.
Yeah.
John Jones will fight Tom Aspinall. It'll happen. And I think the pressure will get even louder. The pressure will get even louder. Mark my words, though. That fight is definitely going to be made. The fight's definitely going to happen. John Jones still wants to fight. He says a competitive fighter, no matter what he says.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's hard to walk away when you're at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Or, so to speak, you're at the top. If you guys do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. Let us know what you guys think about John Jones, Tom Aspinall. Is that a fight that you guys want to see? And Sean Brennan says, is Jones on your Rushmore, Malik? Absolutely. 100%. One of the greatest MMA fighters I've ever seen. Skill for skill. He is amazing. I just don't think he could beat Tom Aspinall. And that has nothing to do with what I think of John Jones' skill set. I think that John Jones is there's a reason why John Jones isn't running for this fight, running to take this fight.
Mm-hmm.
But ask yourself, why was he running to take the Cyril Gane fight? He saw a path to victory. He saw a clear path to victory. John's a very smart guy. He's got to see a clear path to victory. Listen, it wouldn't be fantasy football if it wasn't Fantasy Football Fridays here at TWSN. So without further ado, let's bring in our two TWSN fantasy football guys, analysts. We got Michael O'Hara. We got Steve Bradshaw. We got the law firm. What's up, guys? How we doing?
Morning, Malik. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Man. Talking a lot of UFC today, man. Talking a lot of UFC.
Yeah, do they do tag teams in UFC? They got to get John Jones and Chandler Jones into the ring together.
Oh man, if you want Chandler Jones in the octagon, man, I don't know, man. I don't know if you want that anymore. But man, I got to ask you guys, how are you guys doing? Well, I asked Steve because we asked Mike this the other day. Steve, how are you doing in your respective fantasy football league, my man?
I'm doing good. I have a nice team in my home league. We're making a good comeback. I just need Tyreek Hill to show up and play football because I have Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, Puka Nacua, and Drake London. So my team would be stacked if Tyreek just didn't suck. So
So I got to ask you this, man. How are you guys feeling about my guy? It wouldn't be right if I didn't ask. How you guys feeling about my guy, Mike Gesicki, man, in his matchup this week?
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm feeling good.
It's really going to come down to whether T. Higgins plays or not. ESPN's Ben Baby's saying T wasn't out there for the opening portion of practice, not stretching with the team.
Ooh.
So we'll see what the final injury report is on T. But when T's not out there, obviously the number 2 target in this offense. I know Tanner Hudson had his day on Thursday night, but it's still Mike Gesicki's number 2 job when T's not out there. So his fantasy outlook's gonna really just come down to his availability.
I agree, man. And hopefully Mike Gesicki gets a lot of targets this week. Guys, drop your fantasy football questions down in the comment section for Mike, for Steve, for the law firm. Without further ado, Daniel, the floor is yours.
Beautiful. So let's just go through our starts and sits for week 11. Let's talk about, the biggest matchups that we love and matchups that we don't like. We'll just go back and forth. We started with Mike yesterday. We'll go with Steve today. Steve, who's one guy that you are absolutely in love with, a matchup or a player this week?
Yeah, one player that I really like a lot that I think is being slept on by a lot of platforms and people is Jauan Jennings going up against the Seahawks. Yeah. Now, the matchup itself is, pretty solid. If you look at PFFs, they have a great tool, wide receiver cornerback matchup tool. It's a good matchup. It has a grade of 76.8. And the Seahawks secondary has been nothing special. They've been literally in the middle, 16th most fantasy points against wide receivers. But Jauan Jennings, there's been a lot of talk around the 49ers. You have Kyle Shanahan coming out and saying that Jauan Jennings is now playing the X receiver, which has clearly been very beneficial for him. And he's just been very good without, you have Deebo Samuel playing alongside him, but he's taking over that Brandon Ayuk role. And in the first game without Ayuk, Jennings had 16.3 points. So I think he's a very talented player. It just sucks that we've never really seen this on a consistent basis, because he's been playing behind Brandon Ayuk, who is also a very, very talented player. But I think Jennings is a guy that you should be starting absolutely as a mid-end wide receiver 2, and he's kind of being treated as a wide receiver 3 this week.
For sure. Mike, before we get to your guy, I got a question for you guys from our guy, Sean Brennan. He said, I'm co-running a team. I'm about to pull out what hair I have left. Please tell me I'm right. I'm starting Khalil Shakir over Rashad Bateman this week. I have to hear that I'm not crazy. Mike, would you agree with that sentiment, Shakir over Bateman?
Yeah, 100%. Keon Coleman already ruled out. Murky outlook for both Dalton Kincaid and Amari Cooper. Yeah. And the Chiefs run 2 high looks at the 3rd highest rate in the NFL this season. And that kind of like shell coverage, it really funnels targets to slot receivers. So unsurprisingly, they're rank in the top 5 in yards and fantasy points allowed to wide receivers this season. So, and that's what the Bills do as well. So on the other side of the ball, Travis Kelce, you should be excited about his outlook. Just those guys who are underneath receivers, they really succeed against those 2 high looks. And both of these teams, the Bills and the Chiefs, run them at an incredibly high rate. So, and including with the potential injuries that we could see Shakir operating as the de facto wide receiver 1 for yet another week. So yeah, 100% would be starting him ahead of Bateman.
And Steve, we'll get to James O'Hara's question real quick. How much fantasy football value do you place in Aaron Jones this week versus the Titans defense? Titans defense has been very good against opposing running backs. Do you rate Aaron Jones highly this week?
Yeah, so I think Aaron Jones I definitely dropped him a bit in my rankings. I can pull him up right now. I have Jones as my RB19. So I think he's still a running back too. I think he's just a very talented player. The Vikings offense, Sam Darnold hasn't looked great recently, but you still have Hawkinson coming in to help elevate that offense. I thought he looked phenomenal last week. So overall, I think in most leagues, you're going to be starting Jones as an RB2 because really you don't have many better options, to be honest. The waiver wire is absolutely barren, and Jones is still a good player, but you definitely have to limit your expectations. But I think Jones can still give you solid RB2 numbers this week. Just don't expect it to be like the beginning of the year where he was, dominating and putting up low-end RB1 numbers.
For sure. Mike, yesterday we went over a couple of your favorite starts and sits. Do you have any other guys that you were, a huge fan of when it comes to the starts for week 11?
Yeah, one guy, I wrote about him in my week 10 takeaways column, and he's kind of been on a hot streak, and some people might be questioning whether or not they should promote him from the bench into the starting lineup. And I think the answer is a resounding yes, that you should feel comfortable starting Courtland Sutton. Throughout the year, he has been a volume hog, consistently drawing 8 to 10 targets a week. And the big thing that I wrote about in my takeaways column is the fact that his targets are simply just being catchable at a higher rate. Yeah. You see these people who hand chart data and they look at whether or not a target was indeed catchable, because a target can count for a wide receiver, but it's thrown 3 feet in front of them in the dirt and they don't even have a chance to make a play on the ball. So that's something that really, really matters. Through the first 7 weeks of the season, Courtland Sutton ranked dead last in catchable target rate. Just 59% of his targets, he even had a chance to make a catch on the ball. And in recent weeks, that number has skyrocketed to above 80%, 87% to be exact. And his catch rate has come all the way up to 70% in these last 3 weeks. So Bo Nix is delivering him cleaner passes. He's having chances to actually make catches on the ball. He's the clear engine of the passing offense in Denver. And this is a top against Atlanta. This is a top 10 matchup for wide receivers in fantasy. So I think if you're on the fence, you're not sure if these last couple weeks have been a fluke. I think you should be starting him pretty confidently this week.
Love it. Steve, we'll head over to you. And I've got a question for you guys to think about in a second. Give me somebody that you guys would trade for. Not right now, in a second. Somebody you would trade for. Let's say if my team is 4-6 and I'm, looking for, I need to get back in the playoff mix. Think about somebody, that you guys could trade for. But Steve, is there any sits that you have this week? Any guys that have terrible matchups that you're looking at saying, yeah, I'm getting this dude off my starting lineup?
Yeah, not necessarily a terrible matchup, but one guy that came to mind is in a lot of leagues, I'm seeing people flexing Nick Chubb, and I think we actually had this conversation already. And again, I really hate to crap on Nick Chubb because coming back from that injury, he's a phenomenal player. But what are we doing? He's done nothing this year. He's been terribly inefficient. You think he gets better as the weeks go on, and he had 15 carries last week, but people are kind of ignoring the fact that he had 2.8 yards per carry. He just hasn't looked good. He's never been a great pass catcher. Nick Chubb is a guy that I've been seeing people trying to flex, people flexing for the upside. But at this point, I don't see the upside because Nick Chubb is clearly not the same player he once was. The Browns' offense is just not very good. And the only upside that offense has is from Jameis Winston throwing the ball at a high clip. So there's just no reason to be flexing Nick Chubb this week, and yet I see it over and over in a lot of leagues.
We got a question here real quick from Kevin Jones. He said, J.K. Dobbins or Ramondre Stevenson? Mike, who would you take?
Yeah, I talked about this yesterday on the show, the fact that immediately when Gus Edwards is back in the picture, they forced this into a full-blown committee, not necessarily by snaps, but just by rush attempts. J.K. Dobbins handled less than 40% of the team's rush attempts last week, his first time below the 50% mark since week 2. So on a limited workload, and we've seen that efficiency and breakaway ability be kind of hit or miss with Dobbins. I'm going with Stevenson just simply because of the fact that he's one of the few running backs who you can bank on playing 70% of the snaps, handling a bulk of the rushing work. I mean, we saw them effectively ice out Jermichael Hasty and Antonio Gibson last week. It was all Ramondre Stevenson. So it's not a great offense, but when it comes to just the overall workload that you expect to see, it's Ramondre Stevenson by a mile. And I'm just chasing volume like we do with RB2s just about every time.
Completely. Steve, one last one for your starts and sits. Any other guys that you have that, you love the matchup, you hate the matchup, any other guys that you penciled in this week?
One guy at the quarterback position that I like a lot is just Drake May. I think that going up against the Rams, that could be a sneaky high-scoring game if you have Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp back in the lineup with Stafford. That gives them the upside to score a ton of points every single week. But Drake May, I think he's just a guy that when you're looking at low-end quarterback ones, right, you have, a bunch of waiver wire options. And if you want to predict who the quarterback 12 will be, sure, I could go with a lot safer options than Drake May, but you're looking for upside at that point because there's risk anywhere you go. So Drake May, we're forgetting just a few weeks ago, he had 95 rushing yards. He was a fantastic rusher in college. The Patriots offense, yes, they're not very good, but any player with rushing upside is a guy that I want to be putting in my starting lineup. And especially when you have a guy that's talented at throwing the football as well and can make plays like Drake May, he's a guy that I'm trying to get in my starting lineup as a low-end quarterback one if I don't have any top-end options.
For sure. All right, guys. So any guys that you guys would trade for real quick, and then we'll get to James O'Hara's question real quick. Any guys that, hey, my season's on the line. This is a guy that I can see having a great next 5 to 6 weeks heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, mine is not necessarily if you're like in win now mode, but if you're a shoo-in for the playoffs and you're just optimizing your lineup for those final 3 weeks of the fantasy season, it's George Pickens. One of the easiest fantasy schedules for wide receivers. They got a matchup with the Ravens in there. I believe the Bengals are in there as well. But just that 3 week span, super easy matchup for George Pickens with Russell Wilson under center. Pickens has been targeted on a quarter of his routes. I think it's 26% of his routes, accounting for 40% of the air yards here. So just an alpha wide receiver. Just seeing a supreme usage. And now that Russell Wilson is playing quarterback, I mean, it's seeming like this Steelers offense is a threat to score 28 points in any given week. So that's all you can ask for is like they're just sustaining scoring drives. And against these plus matchups, you can have a Russell Wilson moonball fall right into his lap and he can hit his ceiling on any given week. So just given the volume, given the usage and the quality matchups and just the offensive stability that Russell Wilson provides, I think he's a wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season. And in those weeks, he could easily be one of those guys who goes on just an absolute heater of a run and wins people their leagues.
Steve, any guy for you?
Yeah, one guy that I absolutely love is Cedric Tillman, and I think he's a great buy if you want to make a playoff push right now, or you're like James said, optimizing your team for the playoffs. I think he's a fantastic flex, and I understand the question with him. We didn't really see anything his rookie year. We didn't see anything when Amari Cooper was on the team. Yeah. But as soon as Cooper left, I mean, Tillman has just been unbelievable. He's had 18.1 points, 28.9, 19.5. And this is not just a guy that, has scored a few touchdowns in those games, pumping his volume up. He's averaging 10.7 targets per game. And talent-wise, I did a film breakdown actually on him, and I think he's a very talented player. We also have, if you don't want to take my word for it, all the buzz from guys like Steve Smith. Randy Moss called him the best receiver to come into the league in the last 15 years. Huh? Now, that's probably a little bit ridiculous, but, I think Randy Moss and Steve Smith might just know a tad bit more about receiver talent than I do. So he passed the eye test. He looks great from an analytical perspective. And you have Jameis Winston throwing him the ball, who historically has been great for fantasy receivers. So Tillman is a guy that I think is legit, and I think you should be buying him before. I mean, he's being valued as the wide receiver at 38 on Fantasy Calc as the community. So you're getting him extremely cheap, and I think he could be a low-end wide receiver 2, definitely a guy you can flex this week, and even a mid wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season.
Some high praise there for Cedric Tillman. So we got 2 quick questions. Logan, see this for Mike. Is Gus Edwards worth picking up?
It depends on what your bench looks like and what else is out there. Personally, I'd rather roster one of those high upside handcuffs, someone like a Zach Charbonnet, a Tyler Algier, a Blake Corum. Gus Edwards, like, what you're going to get. Like, on a week-to-week basis, like, you'll get 8 carries and he'll get you 5 fantasy points. Maybe he falls into the end zone and you crack double digits. But even if J.K. Dobbins goes down, I don't think he turns into a bell cow back. I mean, we saw it last year. Like last year when J.K. Dobbins went down in Baltimore, Gus Edwards had the total runway to just dominate fantasy. And he was still, I believe he was just a low-end RB2 despite scoring 13 touchdowns. So the ceiling just really isn't there with Edwards. He's never going to play on passing downs. He just doesn't have that skill set. So I'd rather be rostering one of those guys who can turn into a full-blown bell cow if the guy ahead of them goes down. But if you need, like, if you're just super, super desperate for 6 points out of your RB2 slot, like, sure, go ahead and pick them up if you just don't have anyone else. But in terms of just a bench stash, I think there are better options out there.
All right, Steve, real quick from James O'Hara. He said, Steve, if you were the Bears GM, would you fire Matt Eberflus?
Absolutely. I'm so sick of this team at this point. At least we fired Sid Waldron. Yeah, you're laughing because it's gonna upset me. But I'm done with this team at this point. It's absolutely unbelievable. And at some point, all the culture issues with Caleb Williams in the locker room, calling him to be benched. What are we doing there? That has to just rely on the coach to reel things in, put things together. DJ Moore, I know people are talking about that one play where he walked off the field. He was injured, to be fair, but that's not an excuse overall. He has had very poor body language. He looks terrible on the sidelines, and he is not supporting his rookie quarterback in the way he should be. And a lot of that, you can blame it on the players. Of course, that's their fault. But you have to have a coach in the locker room to figure that stuff out. Because simply put, the Bears are way too talented. The offense there were questions on the offense. They've looked pretty bad this year, but we also didn't really know what to do with the defense. And the defense has looked very good this year. They are way too good and way too talented to have the record they have right now. But at least Shane Waldron is gone. I will say that.
Yeah.
That dude was awful, and I was so upset that we hired him this offseason.
Yeah. All right.
Look, guys, we appreciate you, man. Wish you guys the absolute best for your fantasy football teams this upcoming weekend. Enjoy a great weekend of sports. I don't know if you guys are going to be watching the boxing fight tonight. I certainly will be, but I'll catch you guys next week. Mike, looking forward to having you in the studio next week too.
Yep. See you guys soon.
See you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. That was Mike O'Hara and Steve Bradshaw. Make sure you guys give them a follow as well. Quick little roundup. We're going to move on over to the right bet, give you guys some of our favorite picks for the weekend very, very briefly. I got some plays that I like for the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight. I got the fight to go the distance sitting at plus 146. 14-ounce gloves, I believe, will work in both guys' favor. I don't believe that there will be a knockout. I think that you could see a knockdown. Jake Paul to get knocked down by Mike Tyson is plus 144, but Jake Paul to win by decision is another prop that I like, is sitting at plus 300. Those are some of the props I like for that fight. Tonight, I like Wemby to have over 11.5 rebounds, SGA to score 30 points, which is sitting at, I think, minus 140. Devin Booker to have 25 points, but sitting at around minus 180. Those are some of my those are some of my favorite plays for the weekend. If you want the rest of our plays, you can subscribe to the TWSN Patreon. QR code should be right below. Dan, if you could get that up, the QR code for people to follow. Daniel, what are some of your favorite picks for the weekend? Very briefly.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the stuff you said about the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight. NFL, there's a couple good ones. Just for NBA real quick today, Cade Cunningham's over rebounds and assists. This is a guy, I love his triple-double. If you guys want to sprinkle tonight, plus 950, Cade Cunningham triple-double. He's facing the Raptors, whose defense is a bottom 3 defense. He's got 3 triple-doubles in his past 5 games. And he's just really the engine of the Pistons offense. So I love him to get a triple-double. I do like Anthony Davis's over in points today. And when we look at the NFL, I think it's pretty simple today or for this week. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown's over receptions against the Jaguars, sitting at 6.5. I'm a huge fan of that. And then just looking at this, I really, really, really like Aaron Jones's under rushing yards against the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans defense, rush defense is great. If you guys want a full best bets, go to the Patreon down below. So
we appreciate you guys so much for tuning in and making us a part of your daily morning routine. Remember, there's only one way you should be waking up, talking sports, having the conversation, debating, and that is the right way. We hope that you guys enjoy the fight tonight. We hope you enjoy all the action this weekend, and we'll see you guys back here at 10 a.m. Monday morning to go through all the action. I'll be live after the Bengals game on Sunday night to discuss and recap. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or upload content. We'll see you then.